why I really wanted to write this book was to look at the cultural reasons why there's still this really big divide in emotional labor, even in these really progressive relationships, because I would definitely consider mine a very progressive relationship. I'd say he did at least half of the, household domestic labor, but he was always reminded what needed to be done, and he didn't carry around those, the mental load that I did. And so I was really interested in figuring out why this was so sticky when we've made so much progress.
Right. So he would happily do things if you gave him the sort of checklist of things to do.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. And, that's part of the problem is constantly asking and keeping track of what needs to be done is work. It's, it's part it's part of the job that I was doing at home all the time. And that gets exhausting. It gets mentally draining and emotionally exhausting. So.
Right. Yeah. Well, we forget sometimes, we think of the stuff at home as not work. And then there's work for pay, but the work for not pay also, obviously really counts. So tell me a little bit more about that, because you write in the book about the career implications that having that layer of worry on top of everything else has for women. Can you say a little bit more about how you connect the emotional labor also, not only to this feeling of frustration, your poor Mother's Day experience, the feeling of frustration at home, but also what are the impacts for women in the work world because they're doing this?
Yes. So because we're doing this work at home and we're constantly keeping that running list, we're sort of on call all the time. So we can be at the office, but we're not 100% there because we're waiting, maybe we're going to get a text asking where this, child's teddy bear is for the night. I've heard from a lot of high-powered women that said, I was about to go on stage and give a talk and my phone went off in my pocket. And I thought about it the whole time because I thought something had gone wrong at home and I needed to tend to it. And there's a really, it really inhibits our work when we are constantly tied to the home in that way.
Right, and being constantly worrying. I'm going to read, I literally underlined, it was embarrassing. I underlined the whole book, and then I thought that wasn't so useful when the whole book is underlined. So let me read you one of the many things that I underlined in this book. And it relates to this notion of having it all, because this line that for those of us of a certain age have been fed about being able to have it all. There was this is what women's liberation supposedly was going to lead to, is that we would be able to have it all. And then there's been some backlash around that. So you write, just as women need to stop comparing themselves to the impossible standard of having it all, men need to stop using comparison as an excuse for not changing. For most progressive men, it is easy to look around and feel superior about how they are good feminist partners. But are they? Are they going above and beyond, helping out and taking full and equal responsibility in a life that has, up to this point, been paved by the work of a partner? I can already hear the rebuttal, but I do a lot. And I'm going to have to ask, but do you really? Do you go above and beyond physical labor? Do you do things without being asked? Do you notice all the things your partner does for you, for your kids, for your extended family, for your friends? Do you give as much praise as you get? It's a long list, right? Do you do a lot compared to other men, or do you do a lot compared to your partner? So I wondered if you could talk a little bit about how this idea of having it all has become a kind of a pretty gendered notion, and how it relates to this section of the book that you so eloquently laid out all of the different tensions.
Yeah, so I write a lot about the term having it all in the book. That phrase is really problematic for a lot of reasons. And, chief among them, men aren't asked, can you have it all? They can, because there are women paving the way for them. And they do not have to do all of this work. They do not have that expectation to perform emotional labor at home.
So can you comment a little bit about that dimension of what this notion of having it all does for us?
Yeah. So one thing with emotional labor is that when we do outsource this work, we really see how little we value it. And we give those jobs to women of color and to immigrants because we don't want to pay well for them. And because of the way that the system is set up, we don't pay, our immigrants and our people of color as well as we should. And so we're really encouraging a really poor system when we are outsourcing that work. And devaluing it in that way.
Right. Yeah, and there's a big conversation